Hey, and welcome back to part 3 of Nerd Melon's little experiment on video game grading. We've had packages returned from WATA games and from VGA. We've done videos on both of those, so today I just want to do a comparison of the two grading companies. First, we'll take a look at the numbers, then processing speed, cost, customer service, holder design, and grading accuracy. And what would a Nerd Melon video be without a little number crunching? We wanted to see how these two companies stacked up against each other in terms of auction sales and value of those auction sales. So we looked at our data since the start of the year, 2022, and WATA is the clear winner in this category. So since the start of the year, there have been auction sales of 9,875 WATA graded games, valued at about $21 million, whereas VGA had only 3,303 auctions for their graded video games, worth about $3 million.
Next, we're going to talk about processing speed. And I brought out some examples because pretty soon I'm going to need some games to illustrate some points. But the clear winner for processing speed is VGA. So from start to finish, when I sent the games to when I got them back, WATA took 10 months, while VGA only took 6 months. Now, I'm not going to get into the details about how each company calculates their processing time because it's complicated. WATA uses a business day strategy, which is really deceiving. 150 business days is like 7 months, while VGA doesn't. They tend to express their processing times in months, which is a little bit simpler. But also VGA doesn't start their clock until they start processing the video games. So you can send them to VGA and they'll sit on a shelf until they're ready to start grading them. And they don't start the processing time until they start grading them. So ultimately I don't care about any of that stuff. All I want to know is how long it took from when I sent the games to the company to when I got them back, and it took VGA just 6 months to do that when it took WATA 10. But where WATA really lost out was grading of their open games. So both companies grade sealed games. WATA is the only of the two companies that will grade an open game. And they charge an arm and a leg for it too. And rightly so, because whereas with a sealed game, you only have to grade one single unit, but with an open game, you have to grade the box, the cartridge, the manual, and all the inserts as well. So it takes more effort to do it, so they charge more. But what I didn't like was WATA forced me to choose one of their more expensive tiers to get Cheetah Man graded, and that was their turbo tier at 45 business days, which is about 2.5 to 3 months. But I got Cheetah Man 2 back with all the rest of the other games, which we just said was 10 months. So basically this game, I paid a lot more to get it graded, and it was 7 months late. As for grading fees, it really depends on what you want. The lowest tier for a sealed game at VGA was $90. The lowest tier at WATA was $60 for a sealed game. But if you want to get an open game graded at WATA, the turbo tier that they forced me to use on Cheetah Man 2 will cost you $200. As far as customer service goes, I have no complaints over either company. I had a lot of questions along the way, including some very noob questions, and both companies answered me promptly and with respect. If I had to give a slight edge, it would be VGA, and that's because they returned my protective cases to me. When I sent both packages, one to VGA, one to WATA, I wanted to protect my games in the mail on the way there, so I bought these protective coverings for them. Those coverings aren't cheap. WATA didn't return them, VGA did, and I just thought that was a nice extra piece of customer service that I really liked. This one is very subjective, but in my opinion, VGA wins hands down. VGA's cases are sleek, WATA's are clunky. VGA looks like a Ferrari while WATA looks like heavy construction machinery. And I don't think the extra girth adds much to protecting the game inside because both cases keep the game safe and secure. The information displayed on the VGA case is contained nicely in the case itself, whereas WATA uses an awkward wing design. WATA does offer cases without this winged flap, but then the game info like the name and the grade, etc. are displayed on one of the other sides of the case. It is no longer on the forward-facing side. I like to be able to see my game with the beautiful cover art as well as the grade and the other info. And finally, I'd like to talk about grading accuracy. And again, this is very subjective, and it relies heavily on my very flawed ability to eyeball a grade on these games. It also doesn't help that both companies have completely different grading scales, but I feel that VGA is definitely the harder grader of the two companies. I sent 11 sealed games to WATA and 11 sealed games to VGA. All of the WATA games were 15 to 20 years old or older, so you would expect more wear and tear, therefore lower grades. But overall, I got lower grades from VGA, despite sending them some brand new Switch games, hand-picked from GameStop in the mall. And finally, something I mentioned on our WATA video, I hate how they graded my Cheetah Men 2. They failed to consider one of the inserts in the overall grade, which ultimately resulted in the 8.5 grade you see here. But had they considered that insert, I would have gotten a 9.2 for this game. So what's my conclusion? I think VGA is the better company. They were faster, I like their cases better, and they went that little extra mile with customer service to make me feel all warm and fuzzy inside. I also didn't mention that VGA has been grading games since 2008. They were the first in the industry to do that. On the other hand, WATA's only been around since 2017, so they've got less street cred. I also didn't get into any of the recent controversy surrounding WATA and their apparent techniques in inflating the graded video game market. But ultimately, it's up to you what you want in your grading company. As for me, I like VGA. Anyway, thanks for watching. Join us next time on Nerd Melon.